Hey guys, I know I don't usually do this. I don't usually talk about like things that are serious or topical outside of the entertainment world. I mean, I really don't talk about this stuff on my channel. I want my channel to be a place that's, fun and just, all that. But, I mean, outside of like streams, I don't really talk about anything. And I know I haven't made like a proper video in like 2 months. I know I made the Dreamcatcher video, which was just a repost of a TikTok I made. Anyway, I can't. I'm sorry. But anyway, hi. I did not want to make this. I didn't want to talk about. I don't like talking about things that are topical, especially when they're like not good news, because I'm like, you're saturated with enough shitty news in real life. You don't need to hear it from me. Like, you already know what's happening. And if you don't, then I wish and I pray that you can stay blissfully unaware. 'Cause I wish I was in your shoes right now if you don't know what's going on in the world. So if you don't know, click off. But so there's been like a, I guess, recent uptick, I guess, in mass shootings, and people are saying, oh, it's back on like the 2017, 2018 levels of mass shootings. Now, the reason we've not been hearing about so many mass shootings for a while was because of the pandemic, I would assume. A lot of places were closed. I mean, for a while, like, schools were closed, everything was closed. If you are a shooter and you want to hurt people, you're gonna try to find a place where there's lots of people. You also don't want to get in trouble for, like, not wearing a mask or, like, getting in trouble with, like, local laws and stuff. So, like, now that the pandemic is, like, it's not over, but we're in a, like, state of the economy where things are semi-back to normal, we're having this, like, uptick in mass shootings again. And like I said, I don't ever make videos like this. I don't ever talk about shootings on, like, that's not a thing that I talk about on my YouTube channel. I'm not, like, a political commentator. I don't do this stuff. But I was working today and I saw on the news, that people were talking about the elementary school shooting that just happened in Texas. 19 kids and 2 teachers. I knew I had seen it, like, this morning, like, I saw, like, a couple people, like, tweeting about it. And then I just saw it again on the news, and the reason that I'm making this video is something that one of the reporters said, and I don't even know what news channel this was. This was just on TV at my work. I have no control over that. But, like, somebody said, they said something about, like, this is inexplicable how this keeps happening. And I'm like, this is not inexplicable. There's a very good explanation. And I mean, I'm saying the same thing that all these other people are saying. And I want to, like, put forward, just, like, generally speaking, first of all, what your, like, personal opinions are, or, like, your personal liberties, whatever the fuck you believe in. Like, this is past the point of being a political issue, because children are literally dying. Like, this is past the point of being a political issue, first of all. So, like, people who are, like, trying to make it political, stop. This is, like, I don't care what the fuck your politics are, like, what the fuck your opinions are about gun rights. Like, there's a situation where it's like, okay, there is no need for certain types of guns to be available to be purchased by civilians. 18-year-olds who can purchase these guns. Just, like, I'm not saying, and I'm not one of those people who is, like, calling for complete banning of all guns or anything like that. I don't, like, if you're responsible, I don't have a problem with people hunting. I don't have a problem with just, like, target practice. I don't have a problem even if you have some type of gun that you have for self-defense, as long as you keep it locked up somewhere and you don't go out, like, usually using it, and if you have a proper, very thorough background check and license in order to obtain that weapon. like, you know, a handgun, like hunting rifles, those type of things, I don't have a problem with that. What I do have a problem with is these semi-automatic weapons that can shoot up a room of people in such a short amount of time and are able to be purchased in certain states with very few restrictions. You cannot get a hotel room. In most hotel chains, you are not allowed to check into a hotel room by yourself until you're 21. You cannot buy alcohol, you cannot buy cigarettes, marijuana, you cannot buy any sort of mild substances that are not even that, I mean, obviously in large amounts, those things can be harmful, but I mean, they're generally considered not like hard drugs. You cannot buy those things until you're 21. And yet, you can go get you can go into a Walmart in some states. You can buy guns and you can conceal them. And I want to be clear, like, there's other factors here. Obviously, I think something that needs to be, like, majorly addressed is when you have these, like, young people who are, like, doing these violent acts. It needs to be addressed. What kind of upbringing did they have? Like, how are their parents involved in, like, raising them? Like, what kind of values are you instilling in your children? Are there, like, undiagnosed mental problems that are not getting checked? Like, could this stuff be prevented if people were checking on kids, like, who had violent tendencies and, like, getting them psychiatric help at a young age? You know, all these things. You know, I 100%, just like anything else, a gun is a tool to do bad things, just like anything else. Obviously, a person doing something bad is going to do a bad thing regardless of the tool. Like when they use video games, it's like people use video games to practice for shootings, but it's like, well, they already had the plan of shooting people, like regardless of if the video game was there or not. They were going to shoot people. Like, a gun does not make someone violent, obviously. A piece of media does not make someone violent, but if you have violent tendencies anyway, you can use that as a tool to do something horrible. And I think the thing is, lowering the numbers of people who are killed, if we allow less deadly types of guns that you have to, like, stop and reload, you know, not something that can shoot up a room of 50 in a minute. You know, if you had guns mostly banned, like in the UK, there's a lot of stabbings, and yeah, that's fucked up. Murder is murder. I'm not trying to say that any of that is okay, but the numbers, you have to think about the numbers here, because the amount of people you can stab in a minute versus the amount of people you can shoot with a semi-automatic weapon in a minute, it's just like, it's not even comparable. And, like, obviously, if someone's really hell-bent on doing something, they're gonna find a way to do it. I'm not saying that you can prevent all crime. That's, like, impossible. But the fact that these things on such a mass scale, like, yes, we really need to address, like, mental health in youth and, like, youth with violent tendencies and, you know, curbing that before it gets to the point where they're an adult who can own a weapon and then proceed to, you know, do this. And I just don't understand. People are like, oh, this is inexplicable. How is this still happening? And I'm like, well, no shit, it's still happening. Like nothing has changed. The only reason we're seeing it happen again now is because the pandemic is basically over in terms of how, like, it affects social interactions. It's over. Like, yes, the illness is still out there, but in terms of, like, how our economy and everything is running, the pandemic is basically over. That's why these things are happening again. Of course, you're going to see an uptick in school violence when everyone is back in school. Like, no shit, you're not going to see school shootings over the summer. Like, it's just, like, I don't even want to think about just the amount of horrible, like, this is the most horrible thing. Like, just imagine if your kid was in 3rd grade or finishing up 3rd grade. You're bragging about your kid finishing up 3rd grade or something, and then, boom. It's just, like, I don't even understand, like, I can't even comprehend, like, the amount of, like, and I've been through some, like, really, really bad shit in my personal life, but, like, I cannot comprehend the amount of, like, personally, I don't have kids, and I don't plan on having kids myself. It depends on I don't want to get into my relationship, but the point is, I'm never having biological kids. I mean, I don't plan on parenting in general, but, you know, I'm someone, I care about kids. Like, I I'll say that I don't like kids, like, they annoy me. It's more of, like, a sensory thing, like, of noise and stuff. But actually, I don't hate kids. Like, kids are just being kids. They can't control that. And, like, just because I can get, like, overstimulated or, like, annoyed with kids does not mean that I think they should literally die. Like, it's so, I mean, nobody, like, if it was a building full of adults, that would also be terrible. I mean, if it was a building full of, like, if it was an office building, like, I would be saying the same thing. It's absolutely horrible for that many people to get shot, regardless. But the fact that it is an elementary school, no kid that age should be having to worry about anything other than, like, making friends and, you know, their schoolwork. If they're gonna pass their reading test, like, literally no kid, you know, winning the spelling bee, no kid should be worried about literally dying. And the fact that I saw, so just on Twitter, so many people just saying, like, the same thing over and over. And then there's people saying we need to walk out, we need to stage mass walkouts and stuff with work. And I'm like, nobody can afford to walk out of work. They're saying shut down the economy because that's the only way we can get to them. And I'm like, I agree, but you're putting the responsibility onto the working class. You're putting the responsibility onto the poor people and saying, oh, y'all should just shut down the economy when people can't afford to do that because these people need to earn their paychecks so they can live, so they cannot be homeless. Obviously not everyone. If you have the ability to walk out of work, be my fucking guest. But it's a matter of, like, staging these things. I think schools, you know, any parent who says, I will not let my child return to school until this is dealt with, I think that is 100% reasonable. And I think teachers walking out, just like anybody saying, hey, this is enough, I'm done. I think shutting down the school system could be one way of doing it. Because we know teacher strikes have been known to, like, you know, have, like, some, you know, impact because people get sick of the schools being shut down. And, you know, I think in terms of education, yes, staging these walkouts, or, like, if you, even, like, high school students, like, walking out of class, or, like, that kind of thing. Yes, absolutely. But people saying everyone needs to, like, walk out of their work, shut down the economy, all that shit. It's like, service sector workers are not trying to, like, they're just trying to make ends meet, okay? Like, that's the, like, one, like, part of the argument I'm, like, frustrated with. It's like you're saying, let's put the responsibility of fixing things onto people who don't have much control over the situation instead of putting the responsibility onto the corporations, onto the government, onto, like, the NRA-backed shit. And, like, one other thing I want to say is, like, this is the thing with the whole, like, abortion bans and stuff. It's, like, voting in local elections. And people say, like, oh, voting, like, literally doesn't matter. Like, first of all, I understand, like, saying, if you say both parties suck, like, that's valid, but it's more like, which party, like, tried to stage a coup? Like, which party literally tried to stage a fucking coup on January 6th? Like, that's not a joke. That actually happened, like, and to keep anything to keep them out of office. And, you know, but on the local elections, you know, they stacked the lower courts for years and years and years so we get to the Supreme Court, so we can get these abortion cases through. And now they're banning abortion in so many places because they have these lower courts stacked. And it's like, if we vote in local elections, and I'm not saying don't vote in national elections, obviously, but, you know, that's like the only thing that people really can do. That and, like, protests, like, you know, organized protests, you know, if you're in a position where it's safe to do so, or you feel safe doing it, obviously. I'm not gonna force anyone to, like, protest because I don't like it when people, like, force people to protest, when people are like, you're a bad person if you're not protesting. I'm like, you know, people, like, have lives and shit. Like, they don't want to die either. like, I know it sounds, like, fucked up, but, like, I'm saying, like, what if, also, people, it's not always about them. Like, people have people they have to take care of and shit. Like, they can't just, like, give up, like, risk their life like that. It's not something that people can do always. And I understand that mentality, but, like, I'm never the person to, like, tell people they have to protest, but, you know, if you can, like, the only things you can really do are, I mean, resorting to violence. I mean, obviously, like, in an extreme circumstance, you know, I understand if it's violence in a situation where, like, a shooter is actually happening and then, doing a violent action to stop that shooter, that's different. But I'm saying in terms of, like, protests, resorting to violence is not really helpful. But, like, doing, what do you call it? Like, and, I mean, a lot of times when protests, it's the thing that people don't understand. When protests get violent, it's not always the people who are protesting. It's the police get involved and, like, shit gets bad. And, like, a lot of the BLM protests, it's, like, a whole thing. It's, like, I don't think looting things and, like, violence is, like, a good solution, but, like, a lot of times with the BLM protests, like, the police would get involved and then it would get, like, dirty. It was, like, it started out fine. Or, kind of thing. It's just, like, people don't understand the implication that's going on here. Like, the only thing you could do is, like, organize protests and, like, voting in, like, local elections, state elections, maybe if there's organizations that help with this stuff, or like anti-gun organizations donating to them, I don't really know, but, like, whatever that you can do, people are like, don't feel pressured or, like, forced to do things. It's just this like narrative that I'm seeing, and I get it, and it's just like, I wish everyone could just fucking walk out. Yeah, and it's like somebody was like, well, kids are at risk, and somebody else was saying, well, what about homeless kids? Kids are going to be homeless if their parents have to walk out of school. And it's like, yeah, it's like, there's no winning in a situation like this. There's no solution. It's just, and people who are acting like, oh, this won't happen, or like, this keeps happening, like, this is going to keep happening, like, there's no way that it won't, and it could be you or your school or your child's school next. And I mean, I'd encourage, parents, do whatever you see fit, but I feel like, online school exists. Like, I know not everyone learns well online, and I get that, but, like, if it's literally a matter of life and death, pull your kids out of school. Like, that's what I can say. Shut down the school system. If I had kids, I would not be allowing them to go to public school right now, and I know that for a fact. They'd be in online school. They would be in PA Cyber if I was, because I'm in Pennsylvania right now. I don't actually want to live here, but you get the point. Like, my kids would be in PA Cyber if I had kids. Like, there's no fucking way I would make them go to school in this situation. And the solution is not private schools either. I understand, if you want to send your kids to private school, that's great, but it's just, like, a matter of religious schools have, like, their own issues, like, indoctrination, but, I'm not saying, like, haul your butt off and, like, homeschool your kids, but online school exists, and, like, the thing where it's, like, and I understand, like, when there's, like, low-income people and people who, like, rely on school to, like, feed their children, or rely on school to, like, as childcare. I think that's really fucked up that even has to happen, but, like, I understand when it does. I'm not trying to, like, say those parents are bad parents. If you, like, cannot remove your child from school, I'm not saying you're a bad parent for that. Like, obviously, that's not your fault, like, but I'm just saying, like, taking kids out of school, like, that's the only thing I can see. And yes, I'm talking about, like, lower education here. I'm not talking about college. Like, I'm going back to college in the fall. I have plans, for college. I haven't heard of nearly as many, like, things happening at, like, colleges, and also my college is, like, specifically kind of remote and just in a, but the point is that I'm talking about, like, lower education. That's, like, required education. Like, the thing is, if I felt dangerous about not going to college, I could just drop out. Like, college is not required, whereas K-12 education is literally, like, legal requirement. But I'd rather face the legal repercussions of, hey, my child isn't in school than have my child be risking their life. And that's where it's at. And, like, just seeing this online, just seeing people talk about this shit, I'm just so fucking tired of this bullshit, and I don't understand why this is happening. It's so disgusting, and it's so horrible. Like, Tracy Yardley replied to me today, because, somebody I follow for art, for, not for anything political or topical. And we were talking about walkouts, and then I was saying, well, I can't afford to walk out, and he's like, yeah, I know, nobody can. I was like, people who like never post political shit, or people I don't follow for political shit, posting political shit. It's not even political. It's a matter of life. Like, the people who say they're pro-life want to fucking have these guns legalized. It's almost like they worship guns. Like, what the fuck? And then there's a thing where it's like, I saw like a post where somebody said something about, oh, thank you for all like the children's sacrifices, so that they're sacrificing themselves for our right to bear arms. Like, that's obviously like satire, but the point is that these people like are okay with kids dying because they care that fucking much about their right to bear arms. And like I said, I don't have a problem with like all guns or like certain circumstances. I'm talking about certain types of weapons. I'm talking about the ease of obtaining them legally. It's just, I don't, like, people are so fucking selfish. And I mean, if the pandemic did not show how fucking selfish people are, like, the pandemic clearly showed that people are willing to risk others' lives for their own personal comfort and, like, false sense of security and sense of sticking it to the man. They're so upset about the idea of having to put a piece of cloth over their face that they are willing to let somebody's grandmother die. And that's just a situation which we've seen time and time again. And I think the pandemic has shown how selfish and disgustingly selfish that Americans are. And I'm not trying to say every American. Obviously, there are plenty of sensible Americans. I understand that. I'm saying this as an American. I'm just saying the thing in our culture, it's so fucking disgusting. The amount of violence, the amount of shit. And, people talk about, like, people will try to compare apples to oranges, and they'll talk about, like, homicides on the street and, like, different situations. Like, yeah, that's a problem in and of itself. But, like, this is, like, this whole, like, mass shooting epidemic. I mean, usually homicides on the street don't involve kids either. I mean, sometimes they do, but usually it's like gangs who like adults or like teens, but like not like little kids. Like, this is so fucked up. Like, people compare things. They're like, well, what about this country that has homicides? And like, we're talking about mass shootings. Does any other first world country have mass shootings? And like, fuck, bullshit, dude. This is so bullshit. And I refuse. Like, this is, like, and people are saying, oh, like, we can't let this happen again, or why is this happening? It's like, we know why it's happening, and it will continue to happen until something is done. And I don't understand why it took this fucking long for people to be like, enough is enough. Why 19 people had to die. How many kids have to die before we can say enough is enough? And the whole apples to oranges thing, before anybody tries to make an abortion comparison, we're talking about sentient, living, breathing kids with coherent thoughts and imaginations that are being slaughtered. Regardless of your opinion on abortion, you cannot equate a fetus to a third grader. That's not the same thing. Like, and most abortions take place very early on in the pregnancy because that's how abortion, it doesn't take place. Like, the thing is not even really sentient at that point, and like, doesn't have ability to form thought and say, oh no, don't kill me. And whenever you see abortions take place with much later into pregnancy, it's usually for a health reason. It's usually because of the baby or the mother or both being unhealthy or something going on. There's usually like another reason other than, hey, I just decided I wanted an abortion. Like, nobody at 20 weeks is saying, oh yeah, I just suddenly decided I don't want a kid anymore. Like, what the fuck? That's not happening. Like, it's just insane. Like, and so the narratives around abortion are like so false. Like, oh, people are getting abortion, like, and yeah, there are people who use abortion as a form of birth control, but, like, this wouldn't be an issue if you fucking allow people to have birth control. But, like, the same people who want to take away abortion also want to take away birth control. Like, that doesn't even make sense. Because, like, if you take away birth control, more people are just going to get abortions. Like, we're going to try to do, like, dangerous things to get the thing out of their body. Like, if abortions are not legal where they are, they're gonna do, like, dangerous methods of, you know, getting a baby out. Because they don't have access to birth control. People are not going to stop fucking just because. People are not going to stop fucking just because people say, oh, you should be responsible and not get pregnant. That's not going to happen, guys. And the fact that the same people who want to ban abortions think it's okay to ban birth control is extremely ironic. Like, if you don't want people to use abortion as birth control, then provide fucking birth control and maybe make such sex education mandatory in public schools so that people know how to sex and not just abstinence. Don't just tell them don't fuck, because they're gonna fuck regardless. I got sidetracked because I'm talking about the abortion thing, but I know that there's gonna be somebody who's gonna be like, well, what about how many babies have to be aborted before we decide abortion is bad? Like, this is not comparable. This is, like, not remotely comparable. Like, I just don't understand. It's so bad. People need to, like, just stop. Like, I don't even know. Like, yeah, we need to, like, be making sure, like, people who have violent tendencies as kids don't grow up and have access to weapons. We need to make sure of that. And, like, it's not okay. It's like, only in America are we this fucking stupid to where this is even an issue. Like, I'm sorry, but no, there's no good explanation for this shit. Other than people are fucking selfish and they think it's okay for kids to die, or adults to die, or grandparents to die. Literally anyone. Because the same people who would not fucking put a piece of cloth over their face, who believed bogus pseudoscience and coughed over their neighbors, the same people who did that pre-vaccine, and the same people who now refuse to get the vaccine and still do this, are the same people who think that it's okay for children to die because right to bear arms. And they say they'll literally find any other excuse than, oh, maybe if this person didn't have this weapon, they couldn't have done this. They'll find any other fucking excuse. They'll say, oh, they played a video game or, like, some bullshit. I'm like, yeah, a gun is a tool. A video game is a tool. Anything that's used is a tool. And yes, like, if, like, I forget if it was Columbine or what shooting it was that they used, like, Doom to, like, plan the, like, or to, like, route out their high school and, like, plan the shooting. Like, yes, that's a tool, but a literal video game cannot kill 19 children, though. Like, that's the thing, unless it had some sort of thing set in your computer that could blow up the computer in their face or something. That's not even a thing. But, like, there's no way. So, like, people blame anything other than, we'll say anything is the problem other than weapons, and it's like, the weapons are the things which allow people to kill people, and I understand the logic of, like, well, the reason it's 18 is because you can join the military when you're 18, and if you join the military when you're 18, you can get weapons. It's like, that shouldn't be the same thing. Like, why should civilians be allowed to have military-grade weapons? Why? It doesn't matter how fucking old you are. Like, I mean, one thing I'd say is, you know, at least ban it until you're 25, unless you're in the military, because and I'm someone who usually advocates for, like, universal age limits. So, like, make driving age 18, make drinking age 18. You know, I'm usually someone who advocates for that. But in this case, anyone with a not fully developed brain should not have a fucking firearm. And just, like, even if that's the case, like, I don't understand. Like, let people fucking, like, just, you know, and then make sure people have thorough-ass background checks, and just, I don't even know, man. I'm just, like, there's, like, no good solution for this, and, like, the problem here is that even if we outlawed these types of weapons, there are still so many weapons in circulation. that could get used, and it's just like there's no way to win at this point. They already fucked up too much. Like, the only thing I can say is, like, if we can, like, punish people for having these type of weapons, if there can be, like, a hefty, like, penalty, but even that's not enough, because a lot of these people are, like, suicidal. A lot of these people will just, like, kill people and then kill themselves, so they don't care about getting punished, because they're just gonna die. So it's just, like, there's no solution. All I can say, I mean, I can't really say anything, honestly. Like, I don't think anything I could say is even remotely hopeful to the people who are affected by this. And just, like, I wouldn't want anyone to fucking talk to me. I mean, if I was in that position, if that was my kid, like, I don't even know what I would do. I would probably fucking riot. I would probably, like, I don't know what I would do. I would, you know, if I had any other kids in school, I would pull them out ASAP. But, like, other than that, I don't know, like, what, like, I'd probably just, like, scream and cry into the void, and just, like, I don't even know, like, I can't even imagine just if that was your kid. Just, please, just, this, there's no point to this video. There's no moral of this story other than stop defending fucking Republicans and please vote blue and don't be an idiot. But even that's not gonna solve everything. But, like, that's, and, like, don't fucking die. Like, I don't know. There's, like, no moral to the story. I'm just mad. I'm just really fucking mad. And that's why I'm making this video, because I am angry to no fucking end. And this has to end. This has to stop. We have to end it. I'm so angry. Anyway, I'm not even gonna tell you guys to, like the video or anything, because, like, this is just a rant. There's, like, no justification for this bullshit. Like, just please, just, I don't even know. Just, like, I'm just gonna end it now. I already went way longer than I was going to, but, like, I'm fucking pissed, so yeah.